in a business success, the role of efficient and competent staff is so critical and to the success and growth of any business. And despite that, we are finding even good businesses are struggling in finding the right staff and onboarding them, and for them to integrate with their vision and their values. And so, there is a need for refining and sharing ideas in this area. Meanwhile, what we're also finding that on social media, there's a lot of companies that are promoting onboarding programs. We'll help you get the best staff, and you need our tools, etc. And it's just going crazy. So a lot of people asking, are these people any good? So we did a little bit of research and we tested some of them to identify what they're really offering and what tools are they offering in order to support them or warn the industry against them. What we found is that under the disguise of helping to select and onboard staff, a lot of the companies, their real objective is to get you as a business coach for at least 12 months. So they're looking at a contract between 40 to 60,000. The IT people want, at least an 8 to 10,000 contract for them to continually support you in that capacity. So there is a price attached to it. But the other thing that concerns us, some of them, even though they had Australian accents and they were from here, they were actually importing the system from America or England, so they weren't really compliant with our regulations. So as an industry body, we are very focused also on pain points that are important to the industry so that we can provide solutions that are cost effective, but also we want to make sure that they're tested and right for the salon clinical environment. So today we're launching the first of a series of industry roundtable discussions where we'll review hot topics that really need in-depth discussion and quality answers that are coming directly from the industry. So our first session today is on staff selection and onboarding, testing strategies with proven success, because that's important. You don't waste time or money. So today I'm delighted to introduce three dynamic women who are the real deal. They are intelligent, passionate, incredibly innovative and entrepreneurial, with proven track record of undisputed business endeavors that they have achieved excellent results. They are hardworking, they have high standards and a strong desire to lead in the industry. However, most importantly, I think the best attributes, they are women of character who are keen to give back and share their strategies with colleagues and business owners. So you're in for a treat today. So let me introduce you, first of all, to Melissa. And Melissa they're all practitioners as well as business owners. So they wear both hats. Melissa Prichard is the Director of Skin Solutions, Canberra. And then Rose Bonasera, Director of Elixir Skin Fitness in Sydney, and Kaese, who is the Director of Dee-Luxe Skin Boutique in Brisbane. They're all phenomenal women that I have watched them do the seemingly impossible in certain situations. So let me start with you, Dee. So the first question I want to put to you is, your business is growing and you want to hire a staff member. We do find that with some businesses where they say, okay, I want to now hire somebody, but where do I start? So what I want you to share with us is, how do you design the search for the right person? Don't tell me about the interview phase, because that's another question. So how do you design and determine how you're going to posture your advertising and how you're going to determine, okay, that's what I'm looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tina, for having me on. I'm very excited to be here today. The biggest thing that I really like to stress is to understand and know your vision, your mission statement for your business. I feel as though that's really, really important because before you even put out a advertisement or you start looking for your staff, I feel as though you yourself as the business owner needs to understand who are you going to align with and what essentially are the characteristics and the values that that new team member is going to bring on board. So from there, um, I truly believe that the applicants then that start to come in, you're actually going to see you're going to align with them already. And then obviously, Tina, without giving away or rather the questions that you're going to have in your interview, you're essentially going to pick out again if their values, their mission statement, and the way that they practice again aligns with your business. So I think that's a very simplistic answer. There's so much more that I can go into, but that's where I start.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Melissa, do you want to have any comment on that?
Yeah, so that's is very true. So that I was going to lead into that with I think a question that you were going to ask me, but it like knowing who you want and your avatar of who you want in your team and your values is so important. It's one of the probably the biggest thing. Having someone that doesn't fit your culture, it can make or break a business. So that's something that is like super important when looking at hiring on a new team.
Hmm. Rose?
Oh,
Rose, you.
look, yeah, a lot of what was just said, I totally agree with. There's probably some more information that I could add on to this question through the answer in my question. So I might do that then if that's all right.
All right. Okay. All right. So we're ready to move on to question number 2, which is to Melissa. Okay. So, Melissa, the interview phase. During the interview, what questions would you ask to determine suitability of your candidate to the position? How do you assess skill sets, professional integrity, and character virtues that will suit your business? And also, if you have any red flags that you think people should look out for, that maybe is an indication that this could be a problem. So, a very loaded question, but
Very loaded question. Thanks for having me. Actually, it's a really great question, and it does kind of stem on from what Dee said, about values. So, I say probably too often that, you can teach anybody a skill. So, a skill can be taught, but you can't teach a good attitude, and you definitely can't out train a bad one. And so
mm,
technical skills, they really do matter. So hands-on experience, their clinical knowledge, I generally assess with scenario-based questions around complex skin conditions, treatment planning, and how they would approach things, like a treatment plan for someone with multiple skin concerns, or how they've managed a complex skin condition. But I have interviewed a lot of people that are new to the industry and they can't answer that question. They may
mm,
not be finished their degree, they may not, or they may just be starting their career. And so, what I then really listen for is their evidence-based thinking, safety awareness, and whether they are like they value and truly understand long-term skin health, because that's important to me. But yeah, so skills, they tend to be the easiest part to build on. We can do more short courses, intensive trainings in clinic. We have lots of like assets that we can use for that. But what I'm really assessing in the interview is their clinical judgment and their integrity,
mhm,
and really like their mindset and how open they are to learning. And so I pay pretty close attention to how they manage client expectations, or if there's been even a time if they've worked at McDonald's, whether they've had an unhappy customer and how they've dealt with that. And strong clinicians or a strong team member will speak about their education, transparency, and shared decision making, and won't very quickly jump to blaming or discounting or over servicing. Because if they do that, it tells me a lot about their professional maturity.
Can I ask a question? Do
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
do you ask them to describe a challenge that they've had at work and how they addressed it, so you can see how they would handle a crisis situation?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether they have been in the industry before or whether it's from a different, because a lot of like teenagers, they will have had retail experience at some point. And so just how they have had an uncomfortable experience or dealt with someone that may not have been happy or a dissatisfied customer tells me a lot about how they will handle a situation in clinic.
Okay.
Because a lot of what we do is about aligning expectations, and sometimes people aren't happy, and it's important to deal with that the right way.
Mhm. All
Um,
right.
yeah, mostly what I talk about in that interviews is culture and team fit because they're crucial to a business. And
Mhm.
so it's about their like willingness to take constructive feedback and follow clinic protocols. I listen to whether they are talking collaboratively, whether they are using team, I, we, like which are they using? If they're very I focused, that's a big red flag for me. But it doesn't always have to be. But we're very open with our boundaries. We know that people in the industry, they have a second job, they may have their own clinic on the side. And we talk about that openly in our interviews. And so, not really in an accusatory way, but with clarity, because migration is a risk. Like taking clients, whether they talk about bringing their clients with them, that's a red flag to me. Because if they're bringing clients with them, they're probably, if they leave my team, they'll want to take their clients with them. So that's a red flag there. And an over focus on sales and rather than skin outcomes is another red flag that I will have in my interviews.
But what about the opposite, where they're very skin focused, but they hate sales?
That's a learned skill.
Okay.
So that's something that I call it ethical sales. I call it actually what I call it is a full and remarkable service.
Mm.
And so in our team, we talk about that on a regular basis. Sales is hard. It does sound yucky, but retail is a part of doing your job. And so they may be uncomfortable with it in the beginning, but throughout their probation period, we just discuss that. We talk about how this product is going to help them in their skin journey and how you can't go to the gym and go home and eat McDonald's and
Mm.
expect to get good results. It's the same with skincare. You can't come in and spend all the money and see us and then go home and use
Mm.
water on your face and expect to get the best results. So it's about re-educating around sales, and it doesn't have to be salesy. It it's about providing a full and remarkable service to our clients.
So do you encourage that when they promote a product to the client, that they identify the actives that are suitable for their condition rather than just the name brand? Because
Absolutely.
that's a good strategy to say, well, you've got inflammation, or you've got dehydration. This particular product has a high level of hyaluronic acid in two types of formulations that will resolve this issue. So we recommend that. So basically putting the emphasis on the ingredient that's in the product that solves the problem. Okay, were you happy for me to go to the other ladies now?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Dee, what are your thoughts with the interviewing?
Yeah, Melissa, everything that you've said, you're spot on. Absolutely. I guess whilst we've just discussed the sales topic, I actually, during interviews and discussions, I always say to my team, I don't like the word sales. I actually will come across as education is key. I feel as though, and when I describe this to my team, we're doing our clients a disservice if we're not providing all that we can in terms of benefits and processes. So naturally, with my team, when it comes to, taking our clients on that skin journey, we're going to essentially create a product routine, a treatment routine that works in collaboration with our client and will naturally get the sales across. So that's first and foremost, I guess, my comment towards the word sales there, or rather talking about that, because you're absolutely right. I have definitely come across a couple of practitioners who they do get a bit nervous, or rather, they do bring up the whole I'm not a fan of KPIs. I don't like KPIs. And that is really hard. And I think, you know, a lot of new practitioners that come through, or in general, I would say maybe 50-50 do tend to say that. But I think a lot of that, as a responsible owner and as a educator, we're here to help guide them. That's the biggest thing. And I think coming back to why we all got into this industry and, you know, why we're here, I know myself, I'm passionate to help my clients and I'm passionate to educate them. And so if we're naturally doing that, staying within our scope of practice, then our clients are going to be taken on this journey as it is. And I guess to say another point, when onboarding as well, absolutely, in interviews, I am looking at how they're talking about collaboration with other team members. If they are putting down any other practitioners or scopes of practice, that's something where, for example, if a dermal therapist, dermal clinician is putting down a beauty therapist qualification, it's something that for myself, I actually started as a beauty therapist, going on to a dermal. For myself, though, we're in a collective team environment where we're all working off of each other. We're all learning skills. We're within our scope, obviously, but it's really, really important to have that collaboration because, again, without that, how are we going to grow? We're learning something new every day. And as we know, this industry is ever evolving, ever changing. There's always something new.
Just on that, on the collaboration issue, I think that is a very, very key question because sometimes you have a very feisty entrepreneurial type person who's very ambitious and she's got good energy and excitement, but you can see she's just trying to move past you. So she's going to learn from you, but she's going to step out and do her own business. So you've got to determine the difference between someone who's going to enrich the team effort and the collaboration, or is she really only interested in enhancing her own career and using this environment to learn so she can move on? So that's a very dangerous thing that, and I think identifying the we and also the fact that she's happy to be a team member, that is very, very, very important because if they like to lead, they don't really care so much about teamwork. They think they've got all the answers. They're going to learn what you've got to do them. And then they'll think, okay, I can do this on my own now. So I'm going to move out on my own. So that's a danger of having a high achiever. I think in the interview phase, it's important to differentiate who's really going to be enrich your environment and who's going to just take and move on. So can I ask, Rose, what are your thoughts on that?
Look, that's always a risk whenever you're looking at bringing on a team member. And look, you know, we are living in an age where everyone's got their own dreams and goals. And I think, you know, I can appreciate that. In the interview process, one thing I really do, and I'm a very systemized person, I have a system for an interview. So I ask a lot of open-ended questions and I really listen to them before I start saying anything about the business culture and values. You know, I listen to them and what their personal goals are, what their professional goals are, where they see themselves in years to come, you know, because that to me is important because it's all about alignment for me. And I also tune into how their ability to be able to take on board different systems within a business because everyone's got their own style. Everyone wants to be creative. You can be creative within a system. The business is successful because it's based on systems and we're getting results for clients. So it's important that someone that you bring on is able to adapt to those systems, but also be creative within those boundaries as well. And that's where they also need to feel supported. They need to be mentored and feel part of a bigger picture. And I think that's the way we need to really integrate new staff into a business. It's about making them feel like they're part of something bigger, not just someone that's going to be able to do a task or facilitate a treatment. You know, you want to help them grow. And I guess for me personally, when I've brought on staff in the past, that hasn't worked for me because they haven't got that. They haven't understood what that is about, being part of a business and being part of a team and being part of something bigger and being invested in that. The whole experience behind that is what makes success in a business, right? So if you've got someone coming on board who wants to just take your ideas and go off and open another clinic themselves down the road, well, you know what? Let them go. Because at the end of the day, you are you. No one does what you do. No one does it how you do it. And the experience within your business cannot be replicated. But at the end of the day, myself personally, I really tune in and pick up on things like that. Because if you've got someone coming on board that is not going to be adaptable and not going to invest and not going to be here for the long term and see the bigger picture, they're not the right fit for you.
That's a good point. I was going to ask you, so you investigate who they are before you tell them who you are, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I think in doing it at the beginning of the interview, they are not putting up their, if you're talking, they'll try and duplicate what you're saying to prove that, yeah, I'm like that. But if you actually challenge them, tell me who you are and where do you want to go, they've got nothing to like, you know, they're not mirroring anything you've said. So I think that is so important that you do it at the beginning, because if they're smart and they see your language, they'll mimic your language in order to convince you that they're on the same team as you. Isn't that a brilliant thing? That's a very, very, very good point. Very good point. I know you've got another Melissa. You've got some interesting information how you work with different skill sets, but we're going to leave that for the next one, because you've got some really good experience in working with different qualifications, and that's another challenge that businesses are facing. So, wow, girls, you're doing great. I really love the dynamics. Anyone want to add any more to that before I go to I'll go to Rose? All right. So, Rose, you have selected your candidate and they've arrived on the first day. So, one of the things we find is if people haven't refined that phase, they feel, I've been interviewed, I'm excited, I've rocked up, and then I've got different people telling me different things, and I'm totally confused as to, you know, how I'm going to integrate with the team. So what are the first things that you do on the first day?
On the first day, obviously welcoming them into the clinic obviously is very important, but they also need to have the expectation and the understanding that they are not going to be on clients straight away. They really need to do a lot of shadowing. Yes, they need to understand the values and the culture behind the business and how they work. And part of understanding that is observing. And they do need to do some shadowing. And that's going to take a lot of time because there's so much to learn. It's not just about facilitating a treatment. They're actually learning about the back end of what makes that business successful, the experience, the communication with clients, day-to-day things that happen, and that comes along with observation. So from a business perspective, because there is a system around that, we are investing a lot of time and energy before you get a return back on that staff member. And that's a huge risk for anybody, right? But if you don't teach them those fundamentals first and get them feeling confident and competent in handling the smallest things, that is a reflection on myself personally as a business owner, because I haven't supported them in the right way. So they need to be supported when they come in, and they need to do a lot of observation and understand systems and protocols and how we do things first before they're even going to get onto a client.
Yeah, so they understand, they get immersed into your culture and your way of doing things. Um, that gives them a sense of boundaries are so important because they're not there to restrict, they're there to give you security. And when you establish the boundaries of how you do things, this is how we do, and also compliance with health regulation, risk management, that is instilled at the very, very beginning, where they know that you take positive results seriously, but you also have policies and approach to their work that encompasses risk management. Because risk management is so critical. It happens because we slip on one. Look, I deal with lawyers and I see court cases where qualified people that should know better slip on one little thing and they miss it. And guess what? That blows out into an incident. So I think understanding we're there for results, but we're also there to make sure that we don't do the wrong thing, that we maintain safety, hygiene, risk management. You may think these are simple things, but do you know that they did a research on doctors and they found that 70% of doctors don't wash their hands between patients. And you'd think they would know. So it shows you the role of protocols and stating those protocols so that it becomes second nature. Like the other day, my neighbor said to me, Tina, I think I didn't close the garage door. And can you please check? And I said, no, you did close it. But what happens is when it becomes automatic and you don't even remember that you did it. So I think safety protocols have to be instilled so many times that in the end, they automatically take those precautions. So I think protocols are very, very, very important. And you need to, and see too many people just dive a staff member and just let them loose and there's confusion. So
absolutely, I think that sets them up for failure. Like I've interviewed people before, and they've literally had one day of an induction into a business, and then the next day they're thrown on clients. That sets your staff member up for failure. I don't believe in doing that to people, because if I choose to bring on someone that is the right fit, you need to nurture them into the business, help them feel confident, help them feel competent in everything, and supported in all the systems that, like I said, have made this business successful. And that starts at the bottom. It might even be as simple as folding a towel. But all those little things represents you as a practitioner, but also represents the business. And if those fundamentals aren't taught, right from protocols of how to do treatments, like you said, risk management, running the front desk, greeting a client. It's simple stuff. But if you don't teach them those basics, you're setting them up for failure. And I also like to learn about their fears and where their strengths are. So I can pick up a lot of that when they're observing, because they follow me around the room and I ask them questions in between clients, and I pick up on where their strengths are, where their fears are, where they need more help. It is about making them feel supported. And also understanding how to integrate them into our philosophy and how we manage skin health as well. That's really important. So teaching them, that whole integrative approach, which is what I do in my business, that's really important. So that education side of things, having conversations with them and teaching them those things is important too.
Okay. In your estimation, Rose, how much time do you think you need to effectively onboard someone?
Well, some people won't agree with me when I say this, but it's 12 months.
Oh, yeah, but you've got to allow them to work.
Absolutely. They will come on board. It takes 12 months for someone, a therapist in here, to really feel competent and understand how this business has run. But during that process, they may start off as a support role and learn to, how to, prepare a client, how to finish off a treatment. They'll watch something. So they'll start off in a support role and get familiar with how things are done in the clinic. And during that process, you're able to educate them along the way. So support role, yes, is very important. I am investing a lot of time and energy. And during that time as well, they're also going to other educational seminars or trainings, which I outsource, as well as in-house training. So before that 12 months is up, they're not really bringing you in a lot of money. So you need to be prepared when you bring someone on board that you have to invest for a little while. And during that process, which is usually a probation period anyway, you get to know how invested they are in your business and if they're going to be there for the long term. And that is huge for me, because I'm not about to teach anyone my secrets if they're not here for the long term. If you've got someone coming on board and they're going to undermine you in the room and tell clients that they think they can do things better than you've got a big problem, because they're there for their own reasons and they're going to take clients away from you anyway.
Okay,
So,
let's go on one thing. You're saying about the probation period.
yeah.
In your opinion, how much time do you think you need to give an employee to show their real true colors before you decide to make them permanent?
1 year.
1 year, really? Wow.
I tend to disagree. I'm going to disagree on that one. I think you know quite early on whether they're going to fit or not. I think
You
you know
definitely
within
know.
weeks whether they're going to fit and whether it's worth the time.
You will know that, absolutely. You pick that up straight away. But for you to really understand their long-term goals and really see who they really are, their true colors, it takes a year. It really, really does. In my experience with the staff that I've brought on, they will not relax. They will not show their true colors. It takes a year. It really does. You see them in a different light. You see them with clients. You see how productive they are. You see how their client retention is, how they're rebooking, the results from treatments. Are they being successful with, sales and everything else and doing their job? It takes a year.
So
It
you're
really does.
observing and measuring their performance over.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you think the longevity of the assessment will give you capacity to identify things that perhaps you wouldn't see it straight away. I guess you pick
Absolutely.
character with time because you put their guard down.
That's right, because everyone interviews so well. Everyone's always putting their best foot forward when you first meet them in an interview. And even the first 2-3 weeks, you are seeing what they want to show you, basically. You don't really see them relaxed and how good they are at their job. And like I said, the results from everything that they're doing in the room, how they communicate with people, you will not see that straight away. That comes later. And that's why the probation period is so important, because you will then be able to determine really if that person is there long term for you or not, if they are truly invested. Because for the right person, they have a huge future with you as a business owner. They can invest in their own business under your umbrella. There's so much more money to be earned from performance and incentives and growing their own clientele within your business and learning and becoming more proficient as a therapist, attending seminars and conferences with you. Like, the relationship building between a business owner and a staff member is so important. It's part of bringing on someone new. It's looking at them in a bigger light, not just someone you're bringing on board to perform treatments to help you out.
Dee, do you have anything to say?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Definitely agree with those key points that Rose has brought up. I think to add on to that, probation, and I guess the time that you invest in your staff is what you're going to get out of your team members as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm on two sides of the fence a little. I do agree with Rose in understanding you're really not going to get to team members until later on, because there's going to be nerves. There's going to be an element of finding their place and where they sit in the team. And also they're watching everyone else and how they're interacting in the team as well. I am a believer, though, that, there does come a point, and this is where protocols, procedures, and policies are on the back end, that if you yourself, the way that I go about the business, if I am investing in time in terms of taking myself or my manager off a full day of treating as well, one-on-one training, shadowing, all the above, taking them out to do separate training with some of the suppliers, And then I'm not seeing the approach come in from that new team member. And, we're sitting down, we're having meetings, then I believe that there isn't an alignment. And I think, I'll give that, probably for me, I do about 6 months before that 6 months. And if I feel as though there isn't that alignment for the well-being of not only the business, but even for that practitioner, perhaps it's time to move on. That's my belief in that. I want to ensure, that I'm continually creating a culture and environment amongst not only my team, but also clients as well, because, they're going to pick it up. They're watching, and you can feel that vibe. You can feel the energy within the clinic too. And also at the same time, I don't want to upset my other team members if we're having to hold or carry that practitioner who perhaps isn't performing to that same culture. I understand, though, there's that fine balance, and it does come back on us as, again, owners and educators and leaders, because it is a reflection of, again, us at the end of the day and how we're onboarding, the information that we're providing, education, all the above. But again, my biggest thing is, if there isn't that alignment, despite, records, policies, procedures, everything being followed there, and an understanding, then there does come a point, I feel, that you do start to pick up, okay, is this really in alignment?
You know what I found, because I've been in the industry for so many years, and I taught for 16 years. I found that there, and I used to interview people. Everywhere I went, I would go and have a treatment, and I would interview people. And I found some of the very, very highly educated people were missing out. Like, for example, I was at a top hotel, I booked for a facial, and she didn't even do a skin analysis. So I said to her, I queried her qualification, and she was very well qualified. And I said to her, surely as part of your training, you learned to do a skin. Why didn't you do one on me? And she said, I know, and I agree with you, but this hotel does not give us time to do that. We have to move in straight away into the treatment. So what happens is some bad habits can happen because you're working in an environment where they undermine and they don't utilize something you have been taught to do. So this is where you've got to be careful with people who experiences what environments have shaped them and where are their areas of weakness. Now, I want to bring it back to Melissa and give you an opportunity to share your point. And then I want to quickly mention, I want to go back to the issue, what does education mean? So, yeah, can you share any thoughts you'd like to add to the other ladies?
Yeah, I think it, like I said, I think you do know quite early on whether someone culturally is like in your team's culture is going to be a good fit. Um, I don't think it I think I would have known in the first few weeks of shadowing whether someone is probably going to have what it takes to thrive in my business. And so I give them all the opportunities to be able to do that. We have one-on-one meetings every week, regardless if you've been there 1 week or you've been there 2 years. One-on-one meetings happen weekly. And so we give them the opportunity to be like, oh, well, like this is happening, and we just kind of see how that progresses because sometimes it is nerves. But with interviews, like we said, they are like this, like a martini glass. When they first come in for their interview, they're wide open, they're so happy, and they will do anything that you ask. But if they're coming into your business like a champagne flute, that it's only going to get worse from there. And so generally their openness, their willingness to learn is something that we look for, and just how well they take feedback from things. But it takes so much time. Taking on a new team member is not a small investment. And like it is a good 6 months, 6 to 12 months before you do start to see a return on that. because it doesn't matter whether they have 1 day's experience or 10 years experience, they have to learn your practices, your products, all of those things. And it is a commitment, and one that we don't, especially in our clinic, we don't take lightly. And so if you've kind of made it into our door, we're invested in you, and we kind of give you all the opportunity you can and the support that's possible. And that comes from being a business owner.
Yeah, so you actually use openness as a metric
Hmm.
for assessment.
Yeah,
Okay.
what kind of questions they ask when we're doing treatments, how well they're observing. Because if they're in a treatment room with me and I've taken my time to take them through and shadow me, and they're staring at their watch and not really looking at what I'm doing, or like I ask them, what are your key learnings from what we did today? And if
Mm.
they can't tell me anything, they're not interested.
Well, from what I can see with all of you, you put an awful lot of work. And the reason that you're successful is you have psychological metrics. You also have protocols, and watch their behavior, but you also invest in shaping that person to who you want them to become. And that doesn't happen without effort and hard work. And I believe a lot of businesses fail because they do the onboarding as a very quick little exercise one day, and then, oh, she's not cooperating. Well, she's still trying to find her feet. And when Rose says that takes them a whole year, it goes to show you the layers that are required to see the full potential of somebody. I want to bring the issue of education, because everyone talks about education is important. Education aligns people to you, but also it changes who they are. And part of education is not only releasing knowledge, but also creating enthusiasm for something new and fresh that they can give to their client and to their work. Would you consider that education is a progression, that you have layers, that you give them, you don't give everything all at once? Here's all the manuals, read them, and that's it. But basically, you understand that education is it's a progression where information is given, digested, implemented, then the next, and then the next, and then the next. So they're always expecting something new. The same thing with clients. If you just bombard the client, you're excited she's taken a package, and then you just stick her on the bed and just do a treatment, but you're not continuing to make her excited of how you think and how you view what you're doing and how you like her to cooperate with you. I think a big failure in education is when it's not paced correctly for ongoing growth, appreciation, and also improving standards, both in the interaction between client and the therapist, as well as the business keeping the team engaged and evolving and constantly changing. Can we'll start with you, Rose. How do you relate to that, and what are your thoughts about it?
That's a really good point, because I'm very big on education in the clinic, but it needs to be done strategically. So, like I said, I'm a very systemized person. So there is a system around what treatments I'll introduce to that therapist first to get them feeling confident, get them feeling competent, understand, how to embrace the client's journey and take them through that journey. And then once they've hit that stage and I feel like I've assessed them and I can tick that off, then I move them on to the next treatment. But in between that, they need to have all the right fundamental training to support that treatment as well. Part of that is in-house, part of that is outsourced, but I also have an expectation of that therapist to take some of that on board herself. So we can't pay for everything, and they need to take some of that on board themselves and own that for them as a practitioner, because you want to dedicate your own time to your own professional development. You can't always expect your boss to take that on board for you. If you want to extend your education, you're already a dermal therapist, but you would like to go and do nursing, for example, that doesn't necessarily fall under the umbrella of your job description or the expectation of your employer, but it's something you want to do for yourself. That is, I think personally, fantastic to see a staff member want to upskill and learn and further their education is amazing, because once they finish that qualification, then they can then bring that into the business. They get a pay rise, their skills are more diverse, and they feel like they're belonging again to something even bigger, and they can take that client journey further again. So the potential for them is huge if they want to advance in their education. Like I said, part of that as a business owner, we do need to provide for them if they're not competent in things, to feel supported, but there's also an expectation from the therapist they need to take some of that on board for themselves.
Just want to say something about this training bit. We've had a lot of businesses that reach out with their coaching that we do with them, and they say, when should I pay for the training, and when should they pay for the training? And what we say is that there's an agreement that we've drafted that we give businesses if they wish. And basically it says, if I teach you how to implement my skincare or use my device, then that is a necessity for me. And therefore, I orientate you to how we operate our devices. I have to pay you for that while you're learning. On the other hand, if you, for example, have never been taught to do microdermabrasion or skin needling, that's a skill set. That's worth $1,000 a day. So if you want me to teach you how to do skin needling, I probably will need to do, say, 4 or 5 hours with you. That's equivalent to $1,000 a day. So if I take 3 days, it's $3,000. You sign a contract that says that I expect you to stay with me at least 12 months. If you leave, say, in 6 months, you've got to reimburse me half of that money, because that's what
for sure
is worth. Yeah. But because there's a difference between orientating someone to do things your way, and there's a difference between teaching them a new skill set that will elevate their capability, which it is. So there's 2 types of education. Yeah. So that we really helped a lot of businesses that way. And then there's a respect, so that the employee can't just take the knowledge and just run off and go elsewhere and think, oh, I can now do microdermabrasion or skin needling. I can go and work for someone else, because if they didn't have that skill set, they would have to pay to learn it. So if you're teaching it, you're equivalent to $1,000 a day.
Absolutely.
So, okay, Melissa, your thoughts on education?
I think it's the biggest part of what we do. So a lot of my team are actually going through the degree. So they're working as they are becoming dermal clinicians. I don't pay for any of that, but anything within the clinic that is required, so product education, device training, that's all supplied to them. I do have an expectation that they will continue that. So you don't learn everything in the first 3 or 4 months. But I want them to keep continuing. I set targets regularly. What are you working on now? How can I support that? Do you need something further? I encourage like our BDMs to come down quite regularly, at least once every month or 2 months, to do further education, make sure we're utilizing everything the way that it should be. And that's worked really quite well. It keeps people on track. It stops them from just like resting on where they're comfortable, and keeps pushing everyone forward. And I think that's very important. I do a lot of the training in-house, so like we will spend half a day together and we'll learn something new, and I do a lot of that with them. And I think it just keeps it exciting and keeps us all progressing the way that we should be. And I've lost my other thought there that I had, but it's gone now. But yeah, it's just such a huge part of what we do. And that was it. When they come on board, I actually have a very set out process on where they start training, and where I expect them to be at certain points throughout throughout their training period, before they will go on to clients and move on to the next thing. And we have like set assessments that we do to make sure that the quality of care is there and it's at the standards that I would expect, so that it doesn't matter if they see me or they see another team member, then the level of service is exactly the same.
Okay, Dee, what I want to ask you is, how do you maintain momentum in educating clients? How do you train your staff to continually educate clients so there's something fresh that they receive when they come to see the therapist?
Yeah, good question. This comes back to the word journey. You are taking your clients on a journey, and every step of the way, every appointment, you are following up with your client with how their skin is progressing, their journey is progressing, how their skin is feeling on that day, their products, review, evaluation. You're building that relationship every point of the way. In clinic, outside of clinic, following up via an email, via a text message. It's ongoing. The momentum doesn't just stop when they come in for their consultation at the start. It's continual because your skin's ever changing, it's ever evolving. It's the largest organ. It's not just stopping or just responding to one thing. As we know, holistically speaking, there's so much involved with treating skin, not only, from our scope or what we're talking about from a skin perspective. There's also internal measures as well. So I think, it's providing that educational key points there as to what that client is experiencing, and building them up because, again, the skin's continually changing. We're not going to just, focusing on the same thing every time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Years ago, I was in practice myself, and I've always been a magnet for educate. I've got about 30 different diplomas and different things because I love knowledge. And what I would do with my client, I would say, I learned something exciting this week that I think would pertain to you. And what I found that my clients were loyal to me, and I went to Europe for 7 years, and when I came back, I just rang them up to say hello, and I referred them to other people, and they couldn't wait to get back to me. And you know what they said? Every time we visit you, we learn something new.
And
So we get excited because we see that you're learning things and it's benefiting how you're treating us. So I think communicate. The other one thing that they said, if what you've learned you actually articulate, you remember it 10 times more. So encouraging staff to, whatever they've learned, to share an element that's relevant to what you're doing, and give them a sense of excitement so they can experience your enthusiasm of your new knowledge and how you're implementing it, and why you love them so much in that you want to give them the best and that you're not doing things exactly the same way. One of the things I found over the years that people will, like, even ringing up and saying, look, I want a therapist in my area. Do you have one? Yes, I do. Why do you want to leave her? The common thing that we get is that she's absolutely lovely and I really, really appreciate and like her, but she's stuck. She hasn't done anything new with me in a long time. She keeps doing the same old. See, the idea I've secured her for a course, she's now mine, is a misconception. Because at the end of the day, she's paying you money and she wants to know every time she comes to see you, you are improving, doing things better, changing, so that there's that excitement in the journey that the contribution is evolving. So she doesn't know what you're going to hit her with when she comes the next time. So I think that is one of the key things I found in my practice of loyalty, is that the client knows that you are constantly learning and you've got new information. But also if you share with them, like you might have learned a new element of how a laser treatment can target certain cells and why it works. You can't put it all in the introduction, but if you progressively feed them with just things to make them appreciate what they're getting, I think that is very key. As we say, they're all simple things, but it's about persistence in implementing and encourage them to share the knowledge that they've gained with their client. It creates a bond and a loyalty also between therapist and client. So, ladies, thank you so much for your time. We've run out of time, so we've got to get going. But I just want to give you, show my sincere appreciation and for your time with us. And we do plan to have the second one in about a month's time, and it's going to be on the important strategies for successfully integration of clinical specialists into your business. In other words, and I know, Melissa, you got some great ideas with that. Like you're bringing in a nurse, you're bringing in a dermal clinician, you're bringing in maybe someone who's doing eyebrows or whatever. You're working with a doctor, you're working with a nutritionist. What are the successful strategies of allowing, because it's up to you to bring the team and create an integration that is seamless and efficient. So this is an area where a lot of people struggle and they say, oh, I interviewed, she's a dermal therapist, but she bombarded me with all this stuff and I got really scared because she's going to come in and change everything. What do you do with that? And I think this will be an open one question because there's so much content in it. So I'd love for you girls to handle that topic next time. But for today, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your time. And I wish you every success. And I'm sure that everyone will enjoy this session. So thank you. And I look forward to our next session. Thanks very much, ladies.
Thank you.
If you found this helpful, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're here to bring you practical and strategic solutions that actually work and can support you in your business. We look forward to seeing you during our next presentation. Thank you.